My brother's son got drunk at a family meet and told everyone I was just the sad aunt who buys love. The crowd laughed, even his mom. I just left. A few days later, I did something that made them panic, text me nonstop. I wanted to flip the entire table. Every insult, every laugh, every glance that passed between them like a private joke, I felt it like a slap. And yet, I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my glass or storm out like some tragic character in a second-rate drama. I just stood there silent while my nephew, the same kid whose rent, tuition, and groceries I paid for, called me a sad aunt who buys love. They all laughed. My brother, his wife, even my mother tried to cover her mouth like that would make it better. No one looked shocked, just amused, like it was all finally said out loud. I left before I did something I'd regret. But as I drove home, one thought curled around my mind like smoke. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. I could have cut them off then and there, but I didn't want revenge that burned fast and bright. I wanted to unfold slowly, beautifully, like a lesson carefully taught. The boy wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone. Fine. But it was time he learned who held the leash he'd been chewing on. See, what none of them seemed to remember was that Chase's shiny apartment 2 states away, the one near campus with central air and fitness center, was in my name. He couldn't even legally rent it without me. I'd found it, paid the deposit, and arranged everything. His parents didn't lift a finger. That night, while they were probably still passing around leftover ribs and giggling about how Aunt Grace finally cracked, I was on the phone with the landlord. He was polite, confused, but cooperative. I offered to pay an additional month and a relisting fee if they could have the unit cleared out within the week. By morning, the paperwork was signed. Chase would be getting his notice by email and a knock on the door. When I woke up the next day, I had 22 unread messages. The first was from my brother. "What did you do?" The second was from Chase. "Are you kidding me right now?" The third was a missed call from my mom. I didn't reply to any of them. And that's when the real panic began. He didn't even read the email. That's what his roommate Trent told me later. Said Chase had been gaming all night, woke up around noon and found the eviction notice taped to the door like some kind of bad prank. Thought it was a mistake, then thought it was a joke, then started screaming. Meanwhile, I was at home in silk pajamas pouring oat milk into my coffee and scrolling through property listings. I wasn't planning to buy anything. I just liked the peace of knowing I could. The phone started buzzing before noon. At first, I let the calls stack up just to see how many they'd leave. My brother went straight to fury, texted me 4 times in a row. "You need to fix this. No, this isn't funny. He's out of a place to live." I could almost hear his voice. That spoiled bark he'd had since we were kids. The one he always used when someone dared to tell him no. His wife Kayla tried the softer route. He was always the cleaner, the one who came in after Nate's mess and tried to mop it up with understanding. "Grace, let's not escalate. Can we talk this out like family?" Family? That word had started to feel like a leash. What none of them understood was that I hadn't snapped. I had finally paused. I'd finally seen them clearly, and I'd quietly picked up the scissors. That afternoon, my phone filled with a string of messages that were basically different shades of the same thing. Accusation disguised as concern, concern disguised as moral superiority. Nobody asked me what it felt like to be laughed at, to be publicly ridiculed by the very people I'd been keeping afloat. The group chat came next. Family-only speech balloon. I hadn't seen it light up since Christmas. Apparently, they kept using it even after they kicked me out last January for not attending my dad's birthday party. Now, suddenly, I was welcome again. My mom was the first one in. Grace, please. You've made your point. Can we all calm down? Then my dad. This isn't how we handle things. Chase is young. You made a mistake. But family doesn't turn on each other over a joke. And Kayla, of course. You're better than this. Nobody mentioned the insult. Nobody said what Chase said was wrong. It was all just about how I'd reacted. I went to dinner that night alone to my favorite little Japanese place where they remember my name and always bring out a tiny complimentary matcha. I turned my phone face down and let it buzz until the battery gave up. I had miso soup, yellowtail sashimi, 2 glasses of plum wine. When I finally checked my phone again, Nate had sent me one last message. So this is about your sad little ego and your ugly crooked nose. Thought you'd outgrown the middle school drama. Guess not. That's when I stopped feeling amused. I called my accountant the next morning. Cut the tuition payments. Froze the credit card I'd given Nate 2 years ago when he just needed help for a few months. Canceled the rent support for my parents' condo. All the lifelines. Quietly, quickly, with precision. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to find out what happens when the wallet walks away. It started around 8 a.m. the next morning. Missed calls from Nate, missed call from Mom, another from Dad, all followed by voicemails I didn't listen to. I figured if they were important, I'd hear about it soon enough from someone else. By noon, they realized what had happened. Nate tried the same credit card he'd been casually using for gas and groceries, and it declined. Chase, freshly kicked out of his apartment, was now living out of his car with a laundry basket full of clothes and a microwave he couldn't plug in anywhere. And my parents? Well, their monthly deposit didn't show up on the 22nd like it had for the last 7 years. That's when the real calls started. My mom left 6 voicemails before switching to texts. She wanted to know if I was okay, if I'd been hacked, if I'd been drinking. My dad called from his office line. He hadn't done that in years. I didn't answer any of them. Nate, of course, didn't waste time with pleasantries. He jumped right in. You're punishing everyone because your feelings got hurt. Grow up. You think you're untouchable because you make money now? You forget who was there for you when you were nobody. This is cruel and pathetic. You're not a queen. You're just bitter and alone. Bitter and alone. Right. It's funny how when you give its gratitude at first, then entitlement, then silence, then the moment you stop, you're suddenly a villain. I wasn't cruel. I was surgical. They depended on me for years. Quietly, of course. No one ever said thank you, but they sure lived softer because of it. New clothes, better school for Chase, house repairs, dental bills, vacations that they somehow made work. And the moment I stopped playing the role of invisible benefactor, they couldn't hold it together for even one day. The best part was when Chase himself finally texted me like a little white flag shoved through the fog. I'm sorry. Okay, I was drunk. It was a joke. Can we please fix this? I stared at it for a while. Then I blocked his number. By the end of the week, Kayla sent me a long Facebook message from a burner account because I'd blocked her too. It was basically a 2-page essay on how I was destroying the family. That they were just trying to joke around with me because they thought we were close. That I was throwing away relationships over a single night. But it wasn't just one night. It was years. And they all knew it. That weekend, my parents staged what I can only describe as a trap. They asked if I'd meet them at a new brunch place in town. Just the 2 of us, my mom had written. No drama, I showed up out of curiosity. Guess who was sitting there already sipping coffee? Nate, Kayla, Chase. I turned around and walked out before a single word was said. It took them 3 more days to realize I wasn't coming back. The morning after the brunch ambush, my dad sent me a text that tried to sound calm, but reeked of panic. We didn't handle things well. Your mother's upset. Let's fix this. We just want our family back. I stared at it over coffee, then set the phone down and walked away. There was the difference now. I didn't rush to respond, to explain, to smooth things over like I always used to. They wanted the old version of me, the quiet one, the one who paid and forgave and swallowed everything. She didn't live here anymore. 2 days of silence must have pushed them over the edge because Nate showed up to my home. I'd never invited him to my condo. He never asked. But I guess my parents gave him the address, probably thinking I'd be too polite to slam the door in his face. He rang the bell, knocked, waited. I watched him on my security app, standing there in a hoodie and yesterday's jeans, like he expected a warm welcome and a clean slate. He stood outside for over 10 minutes, pacing, pulling out his phone, texting someone, probably my mother. Then he yelled toward the door like we were neighbors in a sitcom. "So this is it? You think you're better than us now? That money makes you untouchable." I didn't move, didn't answer, didn't even blink. He finally gave up and walked off, flipping off the doorbell camera on his way out like a teenager who just lost an argument. It was so childish. I actually laughed. The next day, a letter arrived in my mailbox, handwritten, carefully folded. My mother's handwriting, neat and composed. She wrote about forgiveness, about family bonds, about how Chase didn't mean it, and how Nate was just under pressure. That families argue, that I was taking things too far, and how I should consider all the things we've been through together, as if I hadn't carried them through most of it. Then came the line that really stood out. "We know it hasn't been easy, but you've always been the one who holds us together, especially now when things are tough." That was it. That was the tell. They weren't sorry. They were scared of losing their safety net, of losing me. I sat down and wrote a reply. One paragraph. No drama, no emotion. "You don't get to mock me and live off me at the same time. I'm not your ATM, your therapist, or your fool. I'm done." I printed it, mailed it, and that was that. The next day, I checked the old family group chat. I was gone again. They didn't even pretend it was a glitch this time. I figured after the letter, the eviction, the blocked calls, it would go quiet. Maybe a few sulking texts, a snide voicemail or two, but eventually I thought they'd accept it. They'd get tired, they'd move on. What I didn't expect was that cutting them off wouldn't make them vanish. It made them unravel. It started subtly. A coworker I barely speak to stopped me in the hallway. "Hey Grace, I didn't know your nephew dropped out of school." I blinked. That was news to me. I shrugged and walked away, but my mind was already turning. The next day, a cousin I hadn't spoken to since our grandmother's funeral tagged me in a Facebook comment under a photo of Chase bussing tables in a fast food uniform. Didn't he have that nice place downtown? What happened? Apparently, the version of events being shared with the family was selective. Something about Chase taking time off to figure things out and how things had gotten tight financially. No mention of who used to pay for what. No mention of the tequila or the insult or the laughter. They were rewriting the story, except they couldn't keep it straight. People were asking questions. And Chase, who used to post filtered photos of poolside views and overpriced sneakers, was now suddenly very offline. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi Grace, this is Mrs. Ferris. I'm Chase's advisor. I was told you might be able to assist with some academic paperwork related to his housing. Can we speak?" I didn't reply. I archived the message. He wanted to grow up so badly. Let him learn how leases and withdrawal forms work on his own. Then came something I really didn't expect. A knock at my office door. My assistant peeked in, awkward. "You have a visitor. Says she's your Aunt Lauren." She hadn't spoken to me in years. We barely exchanged greetings at weddings, but there she was, standing in my lobby holding a latte and a folded scarf. She looked tired, a little older, not smug, not nervous, just done. We sat for 5 minutes in the cafe across the street. She said she'd heard what happened. Said Nate had always been like this. Said she was sorry I had to be the one to finally stop feeding the fire. Then she said something that stuck with me. They only call it betrayal when you stop letting them eat off you. I never forgot that. But the real surprise came 2 days later. A large box on my doorstep. No return address. Light, but taped tightly. Inside were every single birthday card I'd ever sent to Chase. Letters, holiday envelopes, graduation notes, a photo of us when he was maybe 8. Both of us laughing, arms around each other from a day at the lake I'd taken him to when his parents were too busy. They sent it all back like I was a stranger who sent the wrong mail. Like none of it had ever mattered. No note, no explanation, just quiet contempt wrapped in cardboard. I stood there a long time. Then I put everything back inside, sealed the box again, and wrote one word across the top with a thick black marker. Donated. I dropped it at a shelter the next morning. Let someone else find value in what they tossed. And that evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a solo trip. Not for business, not for family, for myself. Somewhere warm and distant, where no one would ask about nephews or holidays or why I was traveling alone. I chose a seat by the window, first class, and smiled when I clicked confirm. They could keep their silence. I'd keep my peace. The trip was supposed to be a reset. I told no one where I was going. I didn't even check in with work. I just packed a carry-on and flew west. A 5-star suite by the ocean. Private balcony, no plans. It was the first time in my adult life I woke up with no obligations. No one to call, no one to answer to. Just the ocean, coffee, and the kind of silence that doesn't ache. I was 3 days into the stillness when the first shadow crept back in. It wasn't a call or a text. It was an email flagged by my assistant, forwarded with a hesitant, "Thought you should see this." A financial office from Chase's college had reached out. Not to me directly. They had contacted the billing department at my company, assuming I was still his financial contact. Attached was a formal letter requesting reinstatement of a previously agreed private sponsorship. No apology, no explanation, just a quiet attempt to pull the leash again, dressed up in polite administrative language. I didn't reply right away. I went for a walk instead. Walked to the beach barefoot for an hour until I could stop seeing red. Then I sent the cleanest email I'd ever written. I'm no longer involved in Chase Ellison's financial matters. I've not signed or committed to any legal agreement. Please remove my contact from all billing correspondence moving forward. I copied their legal office. Then I closed my laptop and ordered a drink. I thought that would be it, but I underestimated them. 2 days later, I received a call from my company's security office. Apparently, my father had phoned reception pretending to be an investor. Said he needed to confirm my return date. Told the assistant his daughter was not well and it was a private family matter. They'd flagged it and notified HR, which meant now professionally this circus was crossing boundaries. That was the moment it all crystallized for me. This wasn't about love. It never was. It was about access. I wasn't a person to them. I was a card that stopped swiping. I booked a new hotel that afternoon, paid in cash. I rebooked my return flight under my middle name through a different airline to a different airport. It wasn't paranoia, it was strategy. I've seen enough of what they were capable of when they were desperate. When I finally landed back home, I didn't tell anyone. I had my phone off, my shades drawn, and for the first time in years, my apartment felt like it belonged to me. Not a temporary charging station between family emergencies. I poured a glass of wine and started cleaning house digitally. I blocked every number I hadn't already. Deleted old group chats, scrubbed backup contacts from cloud accounts, erased calendar invites that still showed Nate's birthday, Kayla's anniversary dinner, Chase's fake graduation. But then something caught my eye. A delivery alert. A package from an unfamiliar sender. I busted it open. Inside, an old photo album, one I hadn't seen in years. My handwriting inside the cover. It was mine, made for Chase when he was 10. Photos of us from weekends and holidays, handwritten notes, notes I barely remember writing, birthday wishes, encouragement before exams, slips of cash taped to cards with little don't tell your mom jokes. No return note this time either, just the album left to speak for itself. They hadn't destroyed it. They'd return it quietly. Like they wanted me to know they hadn't forgotten, but that it no longer meant anything to them. But then, tucked in the back sleeve, folded carefully, was a single sheet of paper. I almost missed it. It was from Lauren. Grace, I told them not to send this. I told them you'd see through it. But I also knew you'd open it because you're still the only one who remembers everything. It's not like them. I never was. Let me know if you ever want to talk. Not for them, just for us. I sat down with that note in my hand for a long time because it was the first time in months someone spoke to me. Not at me, not through guilt, not around a demand. Later that night, a new group chat popped up on my phone. Just the sisters. Lauren had added me. No message, no pressure, just space. Quiet space. I didn't reply right away, but I didn't leave the chat either. Maybe that's how it starts again. Not with forgiveness, with subtraction, with silence, and with one person standing still, finally refusing to be found. 2 months passed. I kept expecting something, a card, a letter, another strange attempt at manipulation disguised as sentimentality. But there was nothing. No more calls from HR, no surprise visitors. It was as if they'd finally realized I wasn't bluffing. In those 2 months, I breathed differently. I read more, slept better. I even started sketching again, something I hadn't touched in years. The Just the Sisters chat stayed quiet. A few check-ins from Lauren, an article here, a funny meme there. We never talked about the others. It was understood. But then one Friday evening, I saw someone standing outside the building. It was raining. I had just gotten home from work, still holding my keys and a takeout bag, when I noticed the figure across the street under a street lamp. Chase. Not frantic, not angry, just still. He didn't see me at first. I waited in the lobby, unsure of whether to walk out or turn back. But curiosity outweighed instinct. I stepped out and walked toward him. He looked thinner, paler. The arrogance had melted off his face. It wasn't guilt exactly. It was confusion. Like he still didn't fully understand how everything had changed. He started to speak, but I raised a hand. Don't say anything you practiced. Just say why you're here. He hesitated, then finally said, I just wanted you to know I get it now, and I'm not here to ask for anything. That was new. He looked at me for a long time, waiting maybe for a reaction, softening, but I just nodded quietly. Good. He didn't try to bug me, didn't linger, just turned and walked away into the rain. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. That night, Lauren messaged the chat. He showed up, didn't he? I sent back one word. Yeah. She replied, they'll keep testing the door, but you're the one who locked it. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the villain. I felt like someone who'd finally come home.